and just look directly into my light. I'm blind. Hi guys! Okay, well, it's been about 2 years, but we have finally reached the end of my island chapters. I started the show immediately after I'd returned from Ireland. The immediate plan was that I was gonna film every day whilst I was in Ireland for 2 months, and I was gonna upload on the go, like most travel vloggers do. However, I wasn't anticipating the total garbage that is the Wi-Fi over there, and everyone claimed to have free Wi-Fi, they never did. And so I couldn't actually upload anything, and they're just, where I was travelling and I was working and stuff whilst travelling, there wasn't time to edit. I don't know how Funfollowy does this, but there wasn't time to edit at the same time as enjoying myself basically. So I chose to do that. I'd film everything, and then when I came back I'd edit everything. Hence why we now have 2 years worth of footage, because I filmed every single day for 2 months, and I tried to like jam pack it, something to do every kind of day, and sometimes there are full episodes and sometimes they're a little bit lacking, so I did stuff here with like tips and advice and things, and that will still continue as well. In this one I thought I'd just do a quick rundown of the highs and lows, the wins and the fails of the entire trip. And every time I think about Ireland and the time that I spent there with Sarah, and it was wonderful, manic, tiring, educational, inspiring, brilliant, amazing and chaotic basically. And so I have a lot of different wins and fails, so I will go through them right now. Starting with the best. I honestly think when I was trying to pick a best moment, it had to be standing atop the cliffs of Moya. This was like #1 on my list to do before I went there. I was like, I know I want to go to the cliffs of Moya, and I want to have this wonderful sweeping landscape and with my hair blowing in the wind and feeling all kind of, I don't know, biblical. I figured that it probably would be a tiny bit disappointing. Like when I actually got there, I thought that maybe it wouldn't be quite up there with my expectations, but I was totally wrong. It blew me away, literally, because it was windy as hell, but it was amazing. And Sarah and I were so lucky because Irish weather is bananas, and we were so lucky. We had the clearest day. Like I say, it was windy, but then we were stood on top of a cliff. Of course it's going to be windy. It all felt so ancient and wonderful that after we'd done this like great big hike, we actually felt more relaxed and like we'd had a massage or something at the end of it, because I think it just sort of revitalized us basically. Now for the worst. The worst had to have been getting sick at Glenbanu, and I'm sure many people who have been unfortunate enough to get sick whilst they're travelling. It's awful because all you want to do is lay in your own bed, maybe have your mum bring you a cup of tea or your partner bring you a cup of tea or something, and just like watch TV in your bed whilst you're recovering and sleep and stuff like that, and you want your home comforts. And we had none of that because we got sick whilst we were in Glenbanu, which we were staying in this really shoddy caravan that had no heating other than this little tiny stove which we were supposed to put in wood and stuff and coal and things, but the vent was broken, so all of the soot and crap and everything just came back out into the room. We were breathing that in. It was still freezing. There was a great big hole by our bed in the window, and it snowed all the time, so we got sick from multiple different ways. It was just a combination of like the pollution that we were sleeping in, the cold, and just, I think, yeah, maybe lack of vitamins or something, but it was miserable. Okay, next, the biggest surprise was Dee Dee's farm. On the total flip side to Glenbanu, we had such a weird time at Glenbanu that we were kind of really concerned about our next woof host, and Dee Dee had some really weird kind of comments on her profile, so we were really worried that it was going to be awful, and it was the best one. That was the brilliant surprise. We learnt so much. She was so wonderful with the aspect of taking us out doing touristy things. The food was great. Like I say, the education, everything. We learnt the most there about organic farming and about all different things, spirituality and different locations. She was well travelled. It was the best time. Now, the biggest disappointment, unfortunately, was the horse riding, because those horses were mental. Sarah got it into her head, and I thought it would be a good idea too. We really wanted to horse ride out there. She really wanted to ride Connemara ponies, and we're too big to ride ponies. Basically, we're both relatively tall, and there was no way we were going to fit any ponies. So we found this place that did horse riding, and it wanted 50 euros to have like a half an hour ride, which was pretty steep considering when I'm on the Isle of Wight I only paid £8 for half an hour of horse riding. And so we were kind of like, we had this wonderful idea of we're going to go along the beach on the horses, because we've done that before. It's wonderful. It's, you know, again, hair blowing in the breeze and you're running through the water and they're loving it and you're loving it. It's brilliant. No, we didn't get to do that. That was an option, but the guide who was leading us decided to take us down the country lanes. Big mistake. Not only were the horses ex-race horses and therefore nuts, we both said we hadn't ridden in a while, but me especially. Sarah has her own horses, I don't, and we just were not prepared for this. And I don't think that was our fault. They didn't explain that this is going to be a hell of a ride sort of thing. It was completely good. We were fearing for our lives. We just thought we were going to fly off, and at one point we rounded a corner and a randy horse who was in the field tried to leap over, which spooked our horses, which again sent them flying off. There was no control. Utterly terrifying, and we paid all that money, and afterwards we were just sore and scared. The funniest moments often came out of the most terrible moments as well, which was strange, but I think a testament to kind of our moxie and spirit. Basically, I honestly think my fondest memories are when Sarah and Jesus and I were trying to pass the time at Glenbanu. The weather was bad and stuff, which meant you couldn't do so much outdoor work, which we were there to do pretty much outdoor work. But we didn't have much of a polytunnel or anything, so we couldn't do any proper gardening or any growing of organic plants or food or whatever. And instead he kind of just decided that we would pull up brambles from his massive acre ground, and it was clearly a job that you needed a digger for, because our hands just weren't enough. They were getting ripped to shreds. We had like crowbars and things, they weren't working. We'd be fine with hard work, it felt frivolous, like really pointless, because again, the ground was frozen, so we couldn't dig enough to get the roots out. So we were literally just pulling the stems of these massive prickly plants off, and they were just going to grow back again. We were like, no, you need to completely turn the earth with a digger, and like that was so obvious to us. And so that was really frustrating, but because of that we had a lot of like downtime. When the weather got really bad, we had a lot of downtime, and so we would just mess around, and it was so much fun. The three of us got on together so well, and we were joking and chatting and at one point singing, and again Wi-Fi was just non-existent, so there wasn't that aspect that we could, you know, kind of just enjoy ourselves with YouTube or something. So we had to come up with all sorts of funny little ways of entertaining ourselves, and those are definitely some of my fondest memories. But it's just strange that that sort of stuff came out of us being bored and annoyed and frustrated and fed up. So yeah, made the best of it, I think. The scariest moments was when we got stranded again and again and again. Public transport is a joke out there, and the amount of times that it wasn't just like buses were late and stuff, they just didn't show up. And yes, we spoke the language, but we were still in a foreign country. We didn't know where we were going, we didn't know how to get back, and we had very limited money, and we were just stuck. And then, you know, it started raining or hailing, and we just stood in podunk town of Lisdoonvarna with literally nothing there. Everything was closed and the bus wasn't coming back for us, and we were trapped there. We were wondering, is this how they repopulate the town, because nobody was coming. It was so bad, and it was really funny, but at the same time we were like, legit, we don't know if we're gonna have to sleep on the street tonight. The saddest moment was burying Sweet Pea. Burying a pet, a beloved pet, was not something that I was expecting to do, and especially on my second day. It was at Sally's farm, and she had this beautiful mastiff called Sweet Pea, who was very, very old. She was on her last legs, and she just went downhill really quickly, and Sally made the decision to have her put down. But I just arrived, and it was so awkward because I was like, oh, this lovely dog, I've just made friends with this lovely dog, and now I have to say goodbye. But also, I know what it's like to lose a pet, like a beloved pet. Phoebe was kind of like the love of my life, my cat, who I had her for just over 15 years, and I was utterly devastated when she died. And so poor Sally had to say goodbye to her dog, who she absolutely loved, who she'd had for years and years, since she was a puppy. And then she had this stranger in her house who she felt like she had to contain it and you know, kind of entertain me and things. And I felt so awkward and bad. Like, I just wanted to comfort her, but I didn't know her well enough to be like, let's just sit and cry together or anything. And, you know, we had that whole day where we were just digging a grave for a mastiff as well. So it was a big grave. And yeah, it was just really, really sad. It was sad losing her. It was sad seeing how sad Sally was and how much pain she was in, and feeling kind of helpless in that I couldn't comfort her. The happiest moment had to have been hearing Galway Girl in Galway whilst dancing in the quays on St. Patrick's Day in Ireland. It was just a double whammy of awesomeness, and it was like, again, one of the things that I'd kind of had a fantasy of from listening to P.S. I Love You soundtrack over and over and over. I'd heard Galway Girl and all the different versions, and I was like, God, I can't wait to hear that. Maybe a little busker would start like playing it whilst we're in Ireland somewhere, and by the end of the trip we'd heard it like 17 times or something. But the first time was the most magic. It was St. Patrick's Day, and we'd watched all the parade and everything, and then we went to the famous Keys bar, and as we entered, the band started playing Galway Girl. It was just the most amazing thing, and that whole night of dancing and making friends, and people were there from all over the world as well. We made some American friends and German friends and all sorts of things. The most wonderful experience. The best lesson that I learnt from this entire trip was that you don't need a perfect plan, and that you don't need to stick to the perfect plan either. Often some of our best times were when we kind of threw the rulebook out the window and just went with the flow, and it was brilliant. Like, we tried planning things, and I think to an extent you should at least know where you're possibly going to be staying that night, just for safety and things. But a lot of the time, if you really try and stick to this really tight schedule, then you're missing things, and you say no to opportunities that could have been something great. The best saving that I made had to have been the Doolin hostel, which will always have a special place in my heart. It was amazing. I know I keep saying it was amazing a lot, but this one really was. So it was crazy cheap, and this was the first hostel that we stayed in Doolin, and we'd been woofing for like I think 3 weeks or something, and we were both pretty tired. We were both kind of we were both sick still from Glenbanu, and we just needed a little bit of R&R, and so we booked this crazy cheap hostel out in Doolin, which was right next to like the Cliffs of Moher and the Burr and all these other like tourist attractions and things. And so we thought, it's super cheap, it's gonna be okay-ish. It was so beautiful. People there were wonderful and beautiful, and there was a really hot guy who like took a shower right by us. Always a bonus. And the actual facilities and everything was so clean. It felt so luxury. We were in a shared dorm with a bunch of other people, but it was just brilliant. It was so much better than any hostel I'd ever stayed in before. It felt like a hotel that you just happened to be sharing with a bunch of strangers. The best perk that I got. Now, at this time, I hadn't even got a channel actually built yet, but I was still telling people I'm filming for a vlog. I am doing this travel blogging show, and that is why I'm filming you. Please don't punch me, that sort of thing. And I think people had kind of recognized that vlogging was actually good for business, and so I did actually get occasionally a few perks. My absolute favorite one was at Cup and Tea, which was this amazing afternoon tea, traditional tea house place in Galway again. A lot of good stories in Galway. And oh, it was so lovely, it was so sweet. I was taking pictures of the cakes and stuff, and the lady asked me what I was doing, obviously, because I was like paparazziing her little shop. And I said, well, I'm a travel vlogger. And she got super excited. I definitely think she thought I was a way bigger deal than I was, and I feel guilty about this too, but if people offer me free stuff, I'm going to take it. You offered. So yeah, she gave me this loose leaf tea, which is, let's see, there we go. It smells so great. It's beautiful. The best souvenir that I got was the one that I made myself, and that is the spatula that I made in Spoon Club. Spoon Club was something that Sally took me to. The county runs sort of club of a load of locals who got together and whittled different bits and pieces, and it was run by this like carpentry expert guy, and it was so great. It sounded so bizarre and quaint, and it was wonderful. It really was. I was not expecting how brilliant it was. The most frustrating thing about Ireland has to be the public transport, definitely, and the total lack of free Wi-Fi. Even Wi-Fi that you paid for at the hostels was sometimes just so damn spotty. Obviously in Dublin it was a lot better, but still, even in Dublin, in the capital city, we had days where the Wi-Fi was just really bad, and we walked round around all these different towns and cities and things looking for the cafes that advertised free Wi-Fi, and we'd purposefully choose these cafes based on the fact that they had free Wi-Fi, so that we could go in, we could email our folks and everything, say we're alive, and we'd get there, we'd order our coffees, and then lo and behold, the Wi-Fi's down today, I'm sorry. Okay, we were in here 2 days ago and you said the Wi-Fi's down, and we've been here for 3 weeks and you said the Wi-Fi's down. You just don't have Wi-Fi basically. What are you doing lying to us? And it was just really annoying. The greatest thing about Ireland has to be the amazing people and the awesome music. I can't even emphasize. So I knew that people were supposedly friendly out there, and this is a part of my, you know, nice racism, as I call it, where I have a generalization about people, but it's always a nice generalization, like everyone in Ireland is going to be friendly and talkative. Like, that's still kind of racist, but it's presuming the best, not a negative. But this one's founded. Everyone that we met was just super nice, sometimes too nice, because there were so many people who just wanted to stop and chat to you for hours, and it's like, we actually have somewhere to be, but we'll stand here and talk about your granddad for hours, that's fine. And again, yes, the music was so good, and it's constant, like 24/7 music, and I love that. But there's just buskers, and they're great as well. It's not like shite people who can't sing or play instruments. They're really, like, somebody should sign that dude. That's sort of good. And just all over, spilling out into the streets, every pub, such a range of different music as well, and like, you think it's gonna be all diddly diddlies, and I actually like that sort of, I like the fiddles and I like traditional Irish music, but there was also, you know, jazz and samba at some points, and just all different types. The best and the worst of woofing. This was the system that I chose Ireland for. I wanted to try out worldwide opportunities on organic farms as the system of cheap travel, and the best part of it was the amount that I learnt, especially at Sunrise Farm with Dee Dee. Learnt so much about the different chemicals that go into our food and why organic is, you know, more beneficial for you. And the worst part of woofing was the flip side of that when you are on a sit that you're supposed to be learning all this different stuff and you learn nothing. And unfortunately that was mostly like Glenvenue. We actually had a fairly good time there because Jesus was there, but he was the saving grace because he just didn't learn anything about organic farming because he didn't have an organic farm. He chose to eat organic food and things, but we arrived in the winter and he didn't have a thriving polytunnel, so that meant that all of his organic food was dead or just not growing yet. So we didn't have anything to do, so we ended up cleaning his house and we ended up cutting our hands to shreds, pulling up brambles, which has nothing to do with organic farming, and it was a big disappointment, especially since I just had the brilliant experience at Sally's farm where I was working with all different animals and food and that sort of thing. The best and worst of hostels. Next up we did hostel stays, and we did hostel stays throughout the trip at various different times, but the best was definitely the Doolin hostel, which I've already spoke about, and the Barnacle hostel as well, which we stayed in for one night right after St. Patrick's Day. We wanted a place to crash that was like safe and secure and everything, and our own private room. This was the one time we splurged in the private room and it was wonderful. It was crazy cheap, the facilities were nice, it was quiet to have our own room because there wasn't snorers or anything, and yeah, it was just really lovely. It was in a perfect location and everything, and the price was really great. The downside of hostel stays is definitely the snoring. Oh, I never knew, because I've never like slept in the same room as anyone who snores quite that badly. Constant noise, even with earplugs, the constant noise, and yeah, and the lack of privacy as well. Obviously hostel stays, if you're staying in a room with lots of other people, you're not going to have as much privacy. The best and worst of couch surfing. Next up we have couch surfing, which we did exclusively in Galway. We were trying to do it in Dublin and stuff as well, but nobody replied to us, so you're lost, Dublin. But yeah, Sarah and I had the most wonderful time with the whole house of boys. We thought it was only like 2 guys in the house, and it turned out there was like 3 or 4 or something. But it was wonderful. They gave us our own room, and they were musicians as well, so we ended up busking with them and jamming. And the downside, which I haven't really spoken about yet, and I'll be discreet, but is sexy time with couch surfers. Now, I didn't, but maybe my travelling companion may have had something with one of the couch surfers, and unfortunately that meant that they thought that I was up for it as well, which I'd just got out of like a 6-year long relationship, and so I was just like, nah fam, I'm good, you know, I'm not looking for that sort of thing. And it doesn't help when you're travelling with a smoking hot blonde that, you know, they assume that, you know, you're the friend who's will be up for it as well, and I'm just like, nah, I'm not interested. And so that was a bit awkward, but I think a lot of people have similar stories where they've been couch surfing and the people kind of expect them to behave in a certain way and they're just not up for it, so it's like, now it's awkward. Well done, I just wanted a place to stay. The best and the worst of travelling with your best friend. I was so lucky that Sarah joined me. I had the best time. I think I would have had an entirely different experience had I not managed to convince Sarah to come join me as well. She just got back from a year-long trip in Canada and she was at a loss of what to do, and I was like, hey, you want to come to Ireland? I've been planning this trip. And she was just like, okay. She didn't take much convincing, honestly. She just joined me, and it was wonderful having my best friend to share all the experiences with right there. And you know, she's quite level-headed and calm as well, and if we got lost, she managed to sort it out. If we were on like late for something, she managed to get us there. So she was like the voice of reason, but also she's just such a fun person to be around that like I said, I don't think I would have had nearly as much fun if I didn't have my best friend there with me. The downside of travelling with your best friend is that eventually at some point you will fall out, and we did have a couple of tiffs and unfortunately it was right around when we got super ill, so obviously we were kind of grouchy anyway. We were miserable, and so we were short-tempered, so we did like occasionally have very small sort of tiffs, and we literally made up that day as well, and we just sort of said, okay, when we know that we need space, because we were like sharing beds and stuff and like literally with each other 24/7. Obviously there was going to be a few times when we butted heads. The best and worst of travelling alone. So I was alone for some of the trip as well. Sarah went back to England, and before she arrived I had a week at Sally's farm by myself. And the best part is you can pretty much do whatever the heck you want. You don't have to worry about being considerate about your travel companion. You can just be totally selfish and be like, I'd like to do this. And also I'm not one for like worrying terribly what time I get to certain things, which my friends will vouch for, and it's extremely annoying, I know. I tend to be like, oh, I'm running a bit late, but it's okay. And if I'm with other people, or if other people are waiting on me, then I feel really bad, and I want to like try and rush to keep up with that. But when I'm on my own, I'm just like, I can go out for a walk and just be like, oh, I'll just keep walking for another hour, and it doesn't matter to me. The downside of travelling alone is that you are alone. You have no one to share it with, and it can get a bit lonely. And even though I wasn't alone for very long, I think I had in total about 3 weeks where I wasn't with Sarah, but it was difficult. And I think because I'd had so much fun with her, that when she went away, very quickly loneliness set in. Moments I will never forget, good and bad. There are so many. Oh my days, so many. Exploring Dublin's nightlife with Sarah and Poppy and Gav, who came up from England as well, just on a random holiday, and we bumped into them and just tore up the bars. That was brilliant. And yeah, dancing with strangers in different bars and things. They're not all drinking, I promise. Yes, walking the cliffs of Moya, being blown away at the barn, eating so much cake and coffee. It's really bad. Constant insane weather where it's sunny one minute, then hailing the next, then a rainbow, and then a heat wave, and then snow and rain, and oh, just mental, but again kept you on your toes. And I think as well, the #1 thing was actually seeing the locations that I'd seen in photos and that I have on my screensaver on my laptop, actually seeing them with my own eyes in person, and you know, being able to point out the landmarks of, oh, there's that, and the exact same shot from the photo was there still, and how things hadn't really changed, and in a good way. I'd planned and I dreamed about this trip for so long that and I thought, you know, I knew everything about these locations because I'd researched them, but it doesn't compare to actually being there and doing the activities and going to the attractions and meeting the people and talking to the locals about what they think about the place, and actually just living in it and experiencing it. So you can read about a location as much as you want, you can watch other YouTube videos and things, but it doesn't compare to actually experiencing it. So if you're just sat at home kind of with the wanderlust and you wish you could do it, please God, just find a way to do it, because it's the best. It really is. Like, I had the travel bug long before I ever started traveling. I knew that I just wanted to go everywhere, and I knew that I'd never really be able to afford to go everywhere, but that's why I made it my mission to like find these little systems and things like WWOOFing and couch surfing and hostel stays and trusted house sitters, and I have some more coming up as well which I found. I wanted to be able to travel the world for cheap, and I wanted to tell other people about it. Like, I wanted to share what I'd found, because so many people, I hear it all the time of, you must be rich. I'm not, hence the name, and I don't have the time. Well, all we have is time, surely. If you're not going to spend your time doing something that you want to do, what's the point? I can't possibly do that. I don't have the money. And this annoying thing, when did it become that we need so much money to do what we really want to do? Like, you hear if you read old travel books and things, people just took off and they relied on the kindness of strangers and, you know, luck, and it didn't always work out, but that's part of the adventure. And yes, we have real world problems and terrorist attacks and things like that, and obviously being a lone woman as well, there's different things that you need to watch out for. I'm not saying be reckless, I'm just saying don't give up on your dreams. Please don't give up on your dreams, because at some point we decided that the main currency of the world is money, and that's not true. It's our time. If you really think about it, we are giving up our time to get money, to then pay for stuff to do in our time. That makes no sense to me. What you do with your time, how you spend it, and yes, we need money to make the world go round, all that sort of thing, but if you want to go around the world, you will find a way. So yes, and watching me is one of the first big steps that you are making, because I will go out of my way to tell you guys about these different systems where you can travel for really cheap, and I won't stop because I love it. I keep getting people telling me, when are you gonna get a real job? And I'm like, no, this is too much fun. So yes, this is the end of the island chapters, but don't forget, I still have all of my Helsinki chapters to come from Finland. Again, I filmed not every day, but almost every day, and there's a lot of those to come, and I'm sure that I will have more trips very soon. I have things that maybe I'm doing, but you'll know when I know, because I do things on the fly. Thank you so much for watching, liking and subscribing. It means the world to me, and you guys are actually having a very real life impact on my life right now. I don't know if you guys know this, but yeah, where every time my subscriber account goes up, my happiness level goes up too, and it's brilliant. It's really, really rewarding that you guys have been commenting, and I get to discuss with you, and you're all around the world, which is very exciting. So yes, thank you very, very much. I will see you in the world. Thanks for watching. Bye!